Minneapolis, St. Paul, The Fan.
Of the sea, back to the block, Snoop Doggy Dogg, funky, yes, the doc went solo on that.
Creeping and crawling into the second hour of the Friday football feast at the Buffalo Wild Wings Monticello. It's PA and Charch, J-Dub by our side, and Buffalo Wild Wings Monticello. We're happy to welcome to the microphone one of our newest favorite guests in the Love Covenant. His name is Alec Lewis. He covers the Minnesota Vikings for The Athletic and TheAthletic.com. Hey, Alec Lewis, YA, make him feel at home, okay? They don't have any Buffalo Wild Wings down Anniston way. They just kill the chickens and eat them with feathers and stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly what they do. Yeah. And good morning. Monticello, what, they can't hear me? They can't hear us? Something.
No, well, here's the deal, okay? Hey, when you have Jared Wells on the scene fixing the internal speaker situation, when you have Jared Wells on the scene fixing it, it'll be fixed soon. But there are a few people listening on the radio right now that can hear okay. So we're just all going to bear with each other right here. And I'm not going to yell like this the rest of the show because my voice already cracks too much during Vikings games. So let's just all be kind with each other. And J-Dub will have that speaker situation resolved momentarily. Can I get a witness for kindness? Thank you. So now let's just whisper. So
yeah. Is your voice okay? I mean,
I mean, it's a double-edged sword for yours truly. It's a prostate-related medication, so I can either have my voice not crack during Vikings games and pee my pants, or I can have it crack every so often and live a normal life.
You're unbelievable.
Well, if you're unbelievable, I'm telling you the truth.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate the truth. Right. The truth's always important.
Your father, John, how is he?
He's great. Yeah, he's great. He's
well, last time he and I were texting because we text and talk more than people know, including you, his son.
I think
down Anniston, Alabama, way he got bit. He got bit with COVID.
Yep.
And I prayed for him, and hopefully, old John's coming out of that okay.
Old John's okay. Yeah, he's back healthy. He's ready for a nice weekend of SEC football. Mizzou plays LSU tomorrow. And
wonder if he got bit at the Vikings game.
Can they hear us?
Hey, are we back? No, we ain't back.
They're cheering for something else.
Okay.
Yeah. They make their own fun here at the feast. I wonder if he
got bit at the game.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's possible. I haven't asked. Yeah. I haven't done an investigation. Yeah, and good morning.
Were you asking a question? Before we had Speakergate 2023.
I don't think I was. I will tell you that Monticello, I mean, these people showed out in Monticello.
For sure.
I mean, that's what you expect out of Monticello.
Yeah. You do.
Yeah.
You do. That's what they're known for.
Alec is at an age where he can say, he's what, 24, 25?
26.
Showed out.
Yeah, he said showed out, and it works. That's why in his athletic stories.
Right.
I was reading a story earlier in the week. He's talking about Jefferson at like 135 a game, and he said he plays with Riz. And
no.
Wow! He even had the apostrophe before Riz, meaning it's charisma shortened.
Absolutely did not.
You did not.
No, but I did use I thought it was a nice simile of Justin's like the guy who's the pickup basketball player who shows up like every single day and just drops 50 and then goes home. And you're like, that's just what shows out. That's just what that guy does. Because right now, every single week, he just shows up and he goes for like 100, 150, 2 touchdowns, and and he's beating double coverage all the time. It just you just become numb to it almost. This is
you do, don't you?
It really like the catch he made on the free play in the end zone over the top of defender, like. That's not the most normal thing in the world to just happen. But if he didn't make it, you'd be like,
what happened?
Yeah. And it's not surprising. Yeah, these people can't hear and they're frustrated.
The flight attendant is on, as we call in the business, a turn. And she's efforting a Richard Sherman phone number for the football feast.
All right.
Yeah, the most recent text, he's very quiet, which is weird because I remember how crazy he was on the field. So that'd be really cool if we can get a
Sherman went to Stanford. Stanford, he's super smart.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Richard Sherman's.
Yeah.
Sharp guy.
In my opinion, one of the best analysts. Oh, we're back. We are.
Oh, yeah,
back.
hey.
Wow. YA
Hi,
noticed that
Monticello.
immediately.
Yeah.
An angel of the sound appeared. That is beautiful.
Some people, like Mitch Stay right now, are saying, you know what, could you turn it back off?
Yeah.
You wouldn't mind?
Well, see, maybe you want it off because Charch and Alec were talking behind all of your backs. And so now that it's on, it's just going to go to 2023. Twins, and you covered the Kansas City Royals for The Athletic.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Right, no playoff games, right? Or were there any? Okay.
No, there wasn't a meaningful game in August.
Oh, okay, right. Because I remember we're not
July.
We're not super far removed from Low Cane days.
No.
Or are we?
No, I mean
10 years?
5 years. 4 years.
Oh, so you're really your timing with these beats is impeccable. I mean, you pick up the Royals and they win 30 games a year. And now you're with the Vikings, and they're threatening to set a National Football League record for fumbles lost. This is great.
13 games last year.
That's a good point.
I mean, come on. Someone said to me...
But you didn't start writing until the Cousins-Hawkinson check down.
No, that's exactly right. Someone said to me last week, they're like, you came, and look what happened. I'm like, what are you talking about? I came, they beat Buffalo with the craziest game of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not the bearer of negativity. It's not possible.
I know you're not.
I literally wrote a story this week on, why the Vikings might be more dangerous than anybody thinks.
Whoa. We're pining to hear that. But hold on. So would you consider yourself a, quote, ball guy, end quote?
I was for 3 years. I watched 300 baseball games in 3 years.
All right. So you are watching the Twins in the postseason, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I think you live downtown-ish. Did you go to any of the games?
Didn't go, but I was driving home from the Vikings facility multiple times on those 2 days, and you see people walk into I think that's so cool as a guy who grew up in a very small town without big city sports. When I see people walk into a playoff game, to me, it's the coolest thing.
And so off that vein, seriously, from Alabama, I mean, you Alabama Crimson Tide jerseys, even throwbacks to Joe Namath and McElroy and stuff
Stabler.
Right. Ken Snake Stabler went to Alabama?
Yeah.
Damn.
Wow.
I think God rest his soul, too.
That had to be Bear Bryant era football.
Were you on the KFAN cruise, one of the first two? So 20-some-odd years ago. Mick Anselmo.
No.
Want to make you an offer I can't refuse. You can't refuse the former boss.
Yeah.
One of our first two cruises, Kenny the Snake Stabler, it was a KFAN listener cruise. Kenny the Snake Stabler was on that cruise. I mean, he was .20 every single night. But he let me.
Sounds right.
So you had me, Poopy Dave, and a couple others. He let us walk around the cruise ship for at least an hour wearing a Super Bowl ring.
Wow. No way.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it helped several members of the party consummate relationships. Lying and saying, I was the punter on this team. But Snake Stabler, that's what triggered there. Okay, so ball guy or not ball guy, Ken Rosenthal, and I tweeted this morning because I read it while I got here way too early, writing the feast, reading The Athletic. It's my life.
Really appreciate it.
Well, don't judge me or at me. But nevertheless, the Rosenthal piece was terrific when he was like, hey, let's not forget about eye test and instincts here with baseball.
Yeah.
And the Toronto bit we talked about earlier, Barrios 47 pitches. I mean, seriously, anybody from Pete Rose through Chris Rose could see he was gaining steam in that game, and he got yanked because of the computer and the computation.
Right, the analytics, right.
So analytics, I've always felt, YA, mean the most in baseball of all the core four pro sports. I get it. The pitcher is tantamount and even as, if not more important than a quarterback, so to speak, because they can change the game so much. However, there do come times, Rosenthal's right, where you got to ride that gut instinct, man, when you got that cliched no tomorrow. How do you see it in Good Morning?
Good morning. I used to be... I love analytics. I love numbers. If you read my stuff, that comes across pretty easily.
Yeah,
and I use them all the time because it's such a good objective measure.
Can't argue.
And I used to think, as I covered baseball, and I'll tell you what changed it for me was the Blake Snell being pulled by Rays manager Kevin Cash in the World Series. It changed a lot of my perspective. And it was
deep-ass knowledge there.
If the other team feels good about the decision that you're making, if they feel like that's going to help them, then why are you making that decision regardless of what the analytics says? And when they pulled Blake Snell in that World Series, you could see the Dodgers dugout was excited. They were ecstatic. They were like, this is, yes, if we don't have to face Blake Snell anymore, like, of course, we're pumped about this. And to me, that shifted a lot of my thinking, and now it's the same for fourth downs. You'll see on X or whatever you want to call the social media site, every fourth down decision has an analytical value. But if you talk to people who have worked in analytics in the NFL, who look at it from a very broad perspective, they will tell you that you have to, if you're on the field, you can feel the moment, you can feel how players feel in the moment. And so that's with baseball and football. That's kind of where I've gotten to is if you're making a decision that the other team's kind of feeling good about, then it's probably the wrong decision.
Wow.
Do you know the Astros well enough to just get me, a super casual baseball fan, up to speed on just high level?
Oh, hold on real quick. I thought you were going to continue on that point because I have one more thing on this analytical bent.
Yeah.
You're right about the line of delineation that can be drawn or can be created via analytics. And the let's say, even metaphorical line in the sand or the divider or whatever, the separator. All depends on who is analyzing the analytic. Okay, so it's like, I'm not super negative, loud Pro Football Focus guy. I don't follow it. I don't use it in my world.
Sure.
There was a time where I got so pissed off on the radio one time when I learned, because somebody was beating me down about something, about this analytic, and like, no, you're wrong. And it's like, they're telling me I'm wrong, and I may have been wrong, but don't tell me I'm wrong because of this. And they were basing their judgment off the Sunday night TV copy that Pro Football Focus watches, simply to push everything out on Sunday night because it's good for business. Well, that doesn't count. Okay, the Sunday night. But the problem is, in a prisoner of the moment society, or prisoner of the moment life period, people are going to see that first number and not follow the adjustments when they get to the all 22. So therefore, deciphering some of these analytics comes down to who's watching, how do I know they get it, and so therefore that plays into it for me by just not following it.
The other thing too is people can value certain analytics differently. Like, you could have two GMs who value certain analytical data points that funnel into their decision making in two totally different ways, which is so hard to understand. But
I get it.
There has to be. To me, it's so easy to use the data as an objective measure that I feel a tendency to do it so often, but there has to, I think people often because watching the film takes so much time, and it takes like sincere focus.
But that's unacceptable to have that be a part of the conversation.
It can't be an excuse.
And like in your stories, because I have all your albums, your greatest hits, and I read your stories.
Yeah.
And you see this a lot with what Charch relies on it a lot too, or uses it a lot too. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's not close to right. I'm just saying, until I know who is watching, what they're watching, and none of them are going to have any idea what the play call is, but there's room for it in analysis on a widespread level. When it comes to super hyper critical analysis, I can't go down that road. But there is room for it, generally speaking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it can provide perspective and context that's important, that helps you understand what you're watching. And I think more than anything else, hopefully that's what these numbers end up doing for people in the mass. And I think that's why I use them, is to hopefully in the end be able to provide additional context for people who are watching the games on Sunday, and maybe to open people's eyes to something that they wouldn't originally notice. And if you can do that with the numbers, I think that's where the value comes. But it's
so in the Eagles game, and I don't know what the Pro Football Focus opinion, or let's. I'm not here to sabotage and tear up PFF, man. I like Chris Collinsworth, and I like what Pro Football Focus has done for football and the market, and I also have a lot of respect for somebody who comes up with an idea, makes it work, and crushes with it, okay? Copyright Paul Charchian for many, many years. I got a high level of respect for that because that's hard, and they did it. But like in the Eagles game, I'm just curious, where the blame was placed for the who, what, where, when, and why of Devontae Smith getting behind the world. Because it looked to be a corner It was a safety,
Yeah.
and then we go to break on the vast and ever-expanding KFAN Minnesota Vikings radio network. I put my binoculars, Lieber put me on this because he's on the sideline. I put my binoculars, and all I saw Brian Flores doing was tapping his chest saying, my bad. Okay, so Flores concedes there. It was a bad play call. It looked like Evans or Murphy. I think it was Evans, but it was Murphy with Flores chatting, and Flores tapping the chest saying, my bad. Okay, but somebody's tearing up a Caleb when it might have been Cam or Metellus, one of the two. See, that's why I think in football, it's very hard to put them numbers out and make them creed.
Last year, like Cam Bynum got dinged twice for 2 play deep balls, one Quez Watkins in Philadelphia and one Jamison Williams touchdown in Detroit. Cam Bynum got dinged for both plays on PFF, and both were Cam Dantzler's responsibility.
Yeah.
So the evaluation of Cam Bynum is clouded in the masses and in the public sphere,
right.
Whereas he knows the rules of the play, and it does make it complicated. Like Harrison Smith has even told me just in conversations I've had with him that he has a hard time watching games and knowing whose responsibility is who without knowing the other team's defense. And if that's a 12-year potential Hall of Fame player saying that, then on the outside it's so hard. And I say this every week we're up here, that's what makes analyzing this game so much more difficult than baseball. In baseball, you have the pitch metrics, then you have the swing decision, then you have what happens in the field. In football, there's 11 people with 11 jobs who all matter to every single play on both sides of the ball. So it's really complicated.
Compelling.
And it can get complicated, but then you don't want to overcomplicate it because the fans are going to watch and have their perspective as they should. Like, that's what makes the whole thing fun. They have opinions at home, whether they know the numbers or know the responsibilities or not.
That's the big picture.
And that's what like you never want to, you can't take that away because that's the fun part about evaluating watching this game.
Same.
I use analytics every single day for my job. A lot of it is Pro Football Focus. And you're 100% right that in any given play, if you just look back at the tape, a lot of times you can't know what the call was, you can't know what the assignment was. And in any given play, PFF can grade it totally wrong. But over totality of the course of a long season and enough plays, I think you get a pretty good idea about who's good, who's bad.
Right.
And that stuff tends to normalize itself out.
But see, like on the DJ Wanham sack at Carolina, if we're going to grade 2 players and we have 0 to 10 to grade, Marcus Davenport gets an 8, DJ Wanham gets a 2. Okay, but DJ Wanham gets the sack and maybe the higher grade. I don't know. I just don't follow. You know what I'm saying? Though?
Yeah, and one of the things that PFF talks about a lot is, you can have somebody can go out and throw like a 5-touchdown game. An amazing 5-touchdown game. But if they're all 5 easy passes, the player doesn't get a great grade because they were all plays that should have been made anyway. So hopefully those things come together a little bit, and they are looking at exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You can make a great play, not register the sack, but they still grade you, hopefully, highly because you made a great play.
Well, it's like Kirk Cousins' interceptions on Sunday. They were very different, and they both are categorized as an interception. One was probably one of the worst throws I've ever seen him make in the red zone on the first drive. It was a horrible throw. He was beside himself.
Charch blamed it on the refs.
Kirk, he gets frustrated with himself and he cares about this thing at a level that again makes you concerned for him. But after that game and that interception, even though the team won, he was beside himself over it. The second interception, Ed Ingram obviously whiffed on his block, and the ball was tipped and intercepted, but they are categorized as the same thing. So you need, to your point and why PFF can be valuable, you need somebody evaluating the film and analyzing the tape to be able to provide context that goes deeper than just the one interception number.
Right, absolutely true.
One of my dear friends, Lonnie Anderson, who works with UPS, just sent me a text. At the end of it, he says, probably a bad decision. Nailed it, young Alec.
Good. Can he drop off? Drop off a package at my apartment.
Well, he's a full-time package handler, and you're looking for companionship. So it may come in the mail. It might be from the Philippines, but it may come in the mail.
You're unbelievable.
You had a question about baseball.
Well, earlier we were talking about Twins. We've since really pivoted away from that, so we don't necessarily need to go that route. You want to talk about Chiefs game?
I would love to. Yeah.
Now, did you gain a Chiefs affiliation due to your time in Kansas City?
Yeah.
I went to a ton of games.
They won a lot, and they had Patrick Mahomes.
I went to a ton of games, and I will tell you, I drank a lot of beverages prior to those games. I covered the Royals at the time, so my Sundays at Arrowhead Stadium were strictly be a 24-year-old degenerate kind of. But it was a blast, and Patrick Mahomes is. I mean, you can't watch that team and that offense and not just like feel like you're watching something.
Get caught up in the
special.
fandom, right?
Yeah.
So, are you a Chiefs fan?
No, absolutely not. No.
Sorry. So what is your main team that you pro team? We know what your collegiate alliances are.
Never really had I've mostly been a players guy.
Okay.
I've always picked
very fantasy football. It is. I like that.
And it really, it is fantasy a little bit, but also like. If there's like a bandwagon where like Cam Newton was really cool at a point, and I love Cam, like that's just kind of how I have always rooted. When you
runner.
When you grow up, thank you. When you grow up in Birmingham, Alabama, like you could root for Atlanta, but who wants to root for the Falcons?
Right.
You root for the Tennessee Titans. They're very irrelevant. The Saints, there are a lot of Saints fans.
Okay.
But I'm glad I don't root for Derek Carr at the moment. So, I never really had a team, which is what made living in Kansas City and seeing kind of the evolution of what Patrick Mahomes has done there. That's what made it fun.
Let's continue this conversation, and I do want to chat about the Twin Series with Alec Lewis somewhere before he departs, and we will do all that around the corner. But the Pitton piece is about ready to drop here. It's Mike Pettin who does the Vikings Report weekdays for 9 to noon, and here they are.
Time now for on the Fan, presented by the Minnesota Lottery. Play the new Vikings scratch game for a chance to win up to $100,000. Vikings assistant coach Mike Pettin joins PA after this.
Coach Pettin, have we hit a point becoming second nature for these players, if not all of them? And you're seeing things now maybe you didn't see back to the Tampa game and up to that Carolina game.
Well, I think that's going to be true anytime you have a new defensive system. I mean, you can go through the off season in the spring and kind of get a sense for it. And, training camp, you're going to get a sense for it. But until you really start playing games and playing at full speed against opponents who are game planning against it, you're not going to have a true sense of what it is. And I also think that with Flo's system is that there's such flexibility in it that we didn't have a great idea as a staff as far as where this could go, what we would be good at, and what we needed to move away from. And I think we're kind of finding, hitting our stride a little bit from that standpoint of narrowing things down, things that we like and things that we don't, and certain situations where schematically that we want to highlight.
What do you think of their running back Isaiah Pacheco and overall how they effort the run?
I think he's a special back. It's rare that he ever goes down on first contact. It's rare that he gets knocked back. And you could tell, just by the way Andy Reid speaks of him, how much respect he has for him, and how integral a part of their plans he is. I mean, he's a guy that we have to be aware of. Not just when he does run the ball, but their ability to get it to him in space, whether it's screens, swing pass, those types of things. He's been a problem for everybody they've played, and we're gonna have to put forth our best effort against him on Sunday.
Have your daughters peppered you for a selfie with Taylor Swift because she might be at the game?
Well, what's funny is this Sunday just happens to be the first game that they'll be here for. So since you mentioned that, it wouldn't shock me. When I was with the Browns, LeBron James came to practice, and my oldest daughter was doing some volunteer work with the marketing department during camp, and she ended up getting a picture of the three of us. And then when it went up on our Instagram, I was cropped out of it. So I'm not going to let that happen again. So if they ask me anything about Taylor Swift, I think they already know what the answer is going to be.
This is The Fan.
With so much drama in the LBC, it's kinda hard being Snoop D-O double G. But I somehow, someway keep coming up with funky ass hits like every single day. May I kick
So what? So how far down the road have you gone, if even at all? Because you're waist deep in Minnesota Vikings coverage. Alec _Lewis is how you can follow him via the tweet machine, and for the Athletic, and does awesome work like Dan Hayes and Aaron Gleeman and Johnny Athletic and Russo Radio and Joe Smith. I mean, just fantastic work by all of you. But nevertheless, you were, which subsequently means you probably still are, an elite baseball mind if you massage said thoughts. So I'm not looking for the war on Bregman or the batting average of balls in play for Altuve, but you inherently probably know more about the Astros than we do. What Charch asked you at one point within the last half hour, what do you think about the Astros compared to the Astros who won it last year? And what do you think?
Yeah, I haven't followed the Astros a ton this year, so I couldn't tell you like what their pitching stats are. But that was always the thing that over the last few years has impressed me most about them. You'll talk about the Altuves and the Bregmans and the Yordan Alvarez, who are just crazy impressive hitters. But they developed these pitchers who were signed for like nothing.
Yeah.
And it was a ton of guys with interesting pitch mixes, and that was the thing in covering the Kansas City Royals that you would always hear is they have the best minor league coaches. They do the best job of development. We know about all the analytics that they've used in the minors forever, going back to Jeff Lunau, who ended up getting ousted, and all that they've done. But that was the pitching, and then just the veteran winning vibe that they have. It's kind of like the Chiefs right now, where it just feels like this team knows how to win. They know they should be winning. And they're structured in a really impressive way. So it obviously will be very difficult. But the more I watch Royce Lewis, the more I'm like, if you've got that guy, you've got a chance.
Right.
It's all about, I mean, John Krasinski tweeted the other day, he's like, to have Anthony Edwards in this town, to have Justin Jefferson in this town, to have Royce Lewis in this town all at the same time at this age.
He wasn't celebrating greatness. He was purposely eliminating Kirill Kaprizov because of the inside joke that he doesn't know where St. Paul is.
Yes.
It was brilliant, but nevertheless, you were saying?
It was phenomenal. And then he's like, he's 27. I'm like, if 27's getting old, then I'm scared as hell. Like, I don't want to be. But no, it really, it's a cool thing. And I think the Twins to have that guy right now is pretty special. I mean, to see him hit 2 home runs that first game was just absolutely is bonkers, really.
He has a chance to be legitimately really a special player for a long time. And, obviously has to stay healthy, and we don't know how that's going to play itself out. Worrisome right now, but man, they don't come built like that with that kind of power very often.
His post-game interview, too, sounded to me like Adam Thielen. It was just like nice, kind of, I don't know, Minnesotan is how I would describe it. It just felt very familiar. But yeah, his ability to hit the baseball is just a special skill, and those guys come around rarely. So, it should be fun to see what happens with the Astros, and hopefully positive vibes for Minnesota sports fans.
Hell yeah.
Vikings fans are going to learn about just how good Isaiah Pacheco is, because that kid has evolved a lot. Holy cow.
Good tackle breaker.
He is.
All right, 3-2. Good tackle breaker, Johnny Pecker. Good tackle breaker.
And they're using him in the receiving game increasingly, and that adds a dimension to his game that we didn't have last year with Pacheco. And this kid does he run hard. Holy cow.
I rewatched the Chiefs-Jaguars game from earlier this year.
Did.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of embarrassing. Yesterday afternoon. And the running game stood out to me. I don't know how much the success they had in that game, but they motion guys, when they run the football, they're motioning guys to the left and running to the right. They're motioning guys to the left, the right, running. I mean, guys are moving everywhere. It is really hard to figure things out. And then Isaiah Pacheco runs like he's mad at the world. Or
he does.
Like that someone said something very mean to him right before the run. Like Patrick Mahomes in the huddle is like, dude, you suck. And it's like he wants to prove every time he runs the football that comment is not true. So it's this test with the Chiefs offense and what they bring, even with their receiving core being so depleted and so devoid of talent, this is an unbelievable test. And if Brian Flores can find a way to scheme a plan to beat this Chiefs team, he deserves a heck of a lot of credit.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a much more a Pacheco-heavy game than many people realize. Vikings run defense obviously had the huge lapse against Philadelphia. Other than that, though, it's been pretty good. The 9 non-DeAndre Swift running backs to face the Vikings are averaging 2.6 scoreless yards per carry. I mean, and it's not fair to just, take DeAndre Swift out, but that Eagles line was just mashing.
Yeah.
Swift is good.
It is unfair. And DeAndre Swift, okay, I mean, with his line, he's been, let's say, mercurial during the course of his career. But what are we looking at here? Rashad White, Joshua Kelly, and Chuba Hubbard?
I was going to say.
Miles Sanders.
I was going to say. And
skeletal remains thereof in that offense.
Sure.
The Panthers' run game has been an abomination this year. It's what makes Bryce Young, and he's in such a precarious position with the talent they have. But
great point.
I'm interested to see how they're going to structure the defense. I think part of the reason that DeAndre Swift had so much success in week 2 and that Eagles offensive line had so much success is because the Vikings defense was like, let's try to take away the RPOs and the passing game, and it left them in an open position for the Eagles to kind of attack via the run. How are they going to try to match up against this Chiefs team where you have to guard for Patrick Mahomes in the RPO? You have to guard for Travis Kelce. Are they going to load up against the pass and be open against the run again? We'll see. But to me, it is going to be a tough run test compared to what they face.
Pacheco averaging 3 targets per game after seeing less than 1 target per game last year, and he's catching most of those. Vikings have only given up 15 receiving yards per game to opposing running backs. They've been very, very good in that regard so far. And some of the players they have faced, some of the runners they faced can catch. Miles Sanders can catch. And nobody's been able to get anything going that way. So it'll be interesting to see, do they go to Pacheco early, see if they've got an advantage here. If they don't, do they get away from that? Clyde Edwards-Helaire might factor in a little bit too. He can catch a bit too. They don't use him a ton that way, but they can a little.
Some of it to me is going to be dependent on whether Brian Flores is going to play more man coverage too. If you're playing more man coverage, the running backs probably are able to be lost in the passing game. The Vikings have played so much soft zone coverage, and they've lined up 8 guys on the front and have 4 guys where it looks like they're just birds on a fence and waiting for the receivers to run to them. And opposing quarterbacks have just dink and dunk their way down the field. And Patrick Mahomes can do that. With this Chiefs receiving core, I would not be surprised if Brian Flores is like, you know what? Let's just challenge the heck out of these guys. Caleb Evans, use your length against Justin Watson.
Right.
Byron Murphy, use your length and use your physicality against Rashee Rice. If that is a route that they chose, Brian Flores in Miami, when he faced Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes in 2020, used a lot of man coverage. And he had Xavier Howard and he had Byron Jones.
Yeah.
The Vikings do not have those 2 cornerbacks, but that Chiefs team had Tyreek Hill. This team does not. So man coverage could be a route that they could go, and then that leaves you open in the middle for Patrick Mahomes scrambling for 15 yards, which again is why this team is so tough.
Alec Lewis, the athletic, multifaceted. Seriously, we've had I watched back the Chiefs-Jags, a Houston Astros minor league reference or 5, and now we just went back to 2020 in the pandemic where this may or may not have happened because no fans were there. A Miami-Kansas City reference.
I rewatched that game, yeah.
It's very, very impressive, Charchie.
Let's go to the Vikings running game, which has obviously had a lot more traction the last 2
About
games.
time, yeah.
Yeah. Starting to come together a little bit, which is good. The Vikings run block win rate is, roughly, I believe it's 10th best.
10th is what you said earlier.
Believe, markedly better lately. You think how important do you think it is for Kevin O'Connell to try to keep the balance of the last couple of games going?
It's huge. If defenses are gonna allocate 7 defenders in coverage to try to take away Justin Jefferson and leave you with light boxes, you have to make them pay.
Yeah,
you have to. It'd be like if you're playing basketball and if the defense is giving you a wide open 3-pointer, you have to take it and you have to hit it, or else you're just helping out the defense. And so the fact that they've done it these last 2 weeks and run the football effectively has been really positive. Now it does place pressure on 3rd downs, because if you're going to run the ball twice and be efficient and get in 3rd and 2, you have to convert those 3rd and 2.
Yeah.
And last week, the 3rd down conversion rate, and the week before, it's been a little spotty. So that's going to be really important if they're going to continue to run the ball effectively. But I think they can. I mean, you can see that they have been way more physical in terms of their run block. It just shows up.
Yeah.
It's obvious when you watch games on Sundays. Ed Ingram has been pretty solid in the run blocking phase. I think Austin Schlottman hasn't gotten enough credit for stepping in and filling in for Garrett Bradbury. And then having Christian Darrisaw has just been gigantic for the team's attempt at running.
And Josh Oliver I've seen some, going back and looking at some of the highlights of his run blocking. Holy cow. He's,
That's good.
We knew that was his bit. That blocking was, how he was going to make his name, but it's evolving. And there was like a 9-yard gain for Alexander Madison last week in which Oliver pancaked 2 guys in the same play. It was just really impressive.
We just, so I have some news for you, Alec, and I know you're a breaking news guy. Just received an urgent text from the editor-in-chief of the New York Times. His name is Stephen Christ, and he said, Alec is firing so many bullets on the radio right now, please keep him another segment. So I have chosen to acquiesce, and we will continue chatting football with Alec Lewis after this.
On the Fan.
Nine to noon, Buffalo Wild Wings, Monticello. Gabe Henderson from the Vikings Entertainment Network and Vikings.com. He'll be here shortly. Preceded by young Alec. Alec Lewis with The Athletic and TheAthletic.com at Alec. It's with a C. Alec _ Lewis. You can find him there on Twitter. Just went to FaceTiming with his father, John.
Normal.
And yes, it's normal. John and I FaceTime, talk, and text more than people know. And and part of that conversation has to stay private about the work the Friday Football Feast at 9 to noon is doing to find you a date. But the rest of the conversation needs to stay private.
Yeah, I was wondering which parts would be staying private.
Right, and it's just to re-emphasize how proud your dad is, not only of you, but your Aniston heritage. That really, really resonated with me.
Yep.
Now, Harrison Smith. Hey, Harrison Smith, ladies and gentlemen. How about that? How about the hitman? Old school, best school, and new school, best school. He's 1/2 sack from joining some luminaries, Hall of Famers, Charles Woodson, Brian Dawkins. I think there's something called Larry Wilson in there. I thought he was the lead singer for the Gap Band, had a son named Charlie, and sings silky smooth music I love. But nevertheless, Larry Wilson's in that mix. So Harrison Smith is a half sack from joining a club of a bunch of HOFs with at least 30 interceptions and 20 sacks. He's a half sack from that. And the thing that got me most with Harrison this weekend, Alec, is the sacks came under the cover of darkness. It's like most of it. I mean, you watch more of it than me. You watch these games back more closely than do I. I don't recall him feigning a blitz from A, that much, or B, from those spots. And now all of a sudden, here it comes. And it works 3 times. Now, Bryce held it too long 1 time. So let's say it worked 2.5 times, which is an indicator to me that everything we either postulated, guessed, or speculated on with Flores is starting to happen, where you get enough tape on certain things, and that's when the whammy happens, and that was that week. I just wonder what this week will be.
Brian Flores talked yesterday about how every single week he feels like he learns more about what his players do well and how to put them in positions to be successful. And that is the most kind of coach cliche, NFL coach. We're going to put our players in position to be successful.
Yeah.
But if you talk to people around this team and who have been around Flores, he does that to a T. He knows exactly what guys do well, and he's going to put them in positions to maximize what that is. And Harrison Smith, as anybody, as you guys listening know a lot better than I do because you watched him for much longer than I have, is so good at rushing the passer. The 2 things that impressed me most is Bryce Young is very slippery. and Harrison had no trouble corralling him in tight quarters and tight space. He did not let him out of his grasp. Like I watched Bryce Young a million times, both in the NFL thus far and in college, and he makes guys miss so constantly.
Alabama.
Harrison was not able. I mean, Harrison did not whiff one time. He also, the one time, beat a left tackle just one-on-one. Harrison Smith, in his size, just straight up beat a left tackle around the edge. And so you're exactly right in that I think Brian Flores, over the course of time, will learn more about these guys and provide more ways to disguise. And to me, that's part of the benefit of having Brian Flores is any given Sunday, he might roll the dice, he might blitz 81%, but he's probably going to give you a pretty fair chance to throw a curveball at an opposing offense and give you a chance in a way that a normal coordinator who operates fairly blandly might not.
You know, he's also been a defensive coordinator for 4 games. Right, so he gets to learn on the job, and you know, if you were a fourth start NFL quarterback, you know, we give you a lot of latitude on bad plays and mistakes.
That's an elite point, because when he's a head coach calling the defense in Miami, he's not putting in. It's not a 100 out of 100.
Correct.
On the nuance of everything Xavier Howard, you know, step by step, depth of a whatever. Because he has offense and special teams and managing and appearances and GMs, and that's an elite point.
You know, so he gets the right to learn how to be a great defensive coordinator on the job, learn from mistakes, you know, figure things out. And so I'm giving Brian Flores some latitude through these early games. To your point, he's learning about his players
and some platitudes
and platitudes. Sure, get some of that too.
How about, I mean, when you don't have Marcus Davenport in your defense, how can you envision how to use him in the best way, and how can you envision how to use him to help Danielle Hunter? And now that he has a week of sample size with a healthy Marcus Davenport, who was really disruptive in that game, it can only, to me, improve and increase Brian Flores' kind of menu of what he can use and what he can call it. And it's interesting to think about. The other thing that Brian Flores has done that, to me, it's kind of like a somewhat basketball trend where it's like, they'll just go small. Like on third down, when they know the opposing team's going to pass, it's 4 edge rushers, 7 DBs, and 1 linebacker. Who says you can't do that? So why not try to do it? You know they're not going to run in 3rd and 20, so throw out your best pass grouping at every position. It's smart to me, and it's part of what makes it fun to try to follow what groupings he's using on a down-to-down basis.
And where that's manifested itself a lot has been in their slot coverage. The Vikings are doing all kinds of crazy stuff against slot receivers, and so many teams, most teams, have got a designated slot cornerback, and that guy, you know, Antoine Winfield, right? You know where that guy's going to be. You know who he's going to be on. You know what his responsibilities are going to be. You know, for Brian Flores, it could be one of 4 different safeties. It could be one of 3 different cornerbacks that's on that guy. It could be a linebacker who's picking him up. There is no tells through 4 games on how he's defending slot cornerbacks, and I think that makes it really interesting. Slot receivers makes it interesting as the Chiefs roll in. They use the slot a lot. They stand up Kelsey in the slot a lot.
I've heard of him.
And so it'll be, you know, I think that makes it a little bit trickier to scheme for that particular spot.
That's why he loves versatility too, because if you have a Josh Metellus who can play multiple spots, you can use him in the slot at times. If you have a Cam Bynum who used to play cornerback, who transitioned to play safety, he can play in that spot. And so when you see Bill Belichick draft guys and talk about versatility and guys who play multiple spots, you're seeing that with Brian Flores using a guy like Josh Metellus way more than he's been used in years past. And it makes the potential plan against a team like this fascinating. And the way Brian Flores thinks he can beat Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs with his personnel, trying to figure out what he thinks that is what's fun for me to try to figure out how he envisions that being possible.
Okay, one more.
Vikings have registered, at least according to some services, 0 broken tackles as a team. Nobody. No running back, nobody after the catch. And I did the same thing PA's doing right now. I'm like going through my head, thinking about runs and stuff.
Oh, no, I was actually thinking of a line that at 1 and 3 you cannot unfurl, but I will anyway. Yeah, we may not break any tackles, but all we do is break hearts. Yeah, but like great, all of one time, though.
Yeah. Yeah. It's maybe one of those stats, a little bit like turnovers. They're like, okay, well, this is how do you get to 1-3 when many things about the Vikings operation is working well? The turnovers have been a big problem. Maybe this is one of the other handful of other things you can point at and go, well, that's how you end up at 1-3. You don't break any tackles in 4 games.
I'm doing the same thing you're doing, just going back game by game and trying to figure out if
there was a broken tackle.
Justin Jefferson's touchdown against the Chargers over the middle, I guess he didn't break a tackle. He's just so dang good that he created too much space.
Right, didn't have to break a tackle. Right.
But yeah, it's... This 1-3 start is so confounding, and that's partly why earlier this week I wrote why this team could be more dangerous than you think. They've been explosive on offense. Can they eliminate the turnovers, and can they be efficient on third down? If those two things happen, and Brian Flores can throw a curveball, I think this weekend is going to be up for grabs. And it's the NFL. These games are very tight every single Sunday because they just are. So should be fun.
Elite work, brother. Thank you.
No, thanks for having me.
Alec Lewis, Athletic, ladies and gentlemen. Seriously, the $3-4 a month or whatever is worth it, if only for YA. Young Alec at Alec_Lewis via Twitter. Nordo produces from KFAN. That's J-Dub over there. Paul Charchi and the Street Team, and I'm Paul Allen. We are into the final hour of the Friday Football Feast from Buffalo Wild Wings Monticello on your home for Minnesota Vikings football and Little Brown Jug football tomorrow. Minnesota Wild hockey and all the Donnybrooks last evening against Chicago. You can stream the Wolves. We have everything. Everybody else has nothing. It's KFAN.